Welcome to this Monday morning live talk. And today we're going to talk about compassion. That's the week's topic that I chose. And last week was intuition. Now we've been through quite a lot of topics, and for those of you who've watched a few of them, I hope you've enjoyed them. I'm Emma Rowena. I'm a musician and a performer, but I'm also an intuitive reader and a healer, and I work with people in helping them to clear their pasts, clear their clutter, their old belief systems and patterns, so they can move forward, open up their hearts to themselves, to their own future, and move forward towards a life that they want, a life that they love. Hi Sylvie, good to see you. Okay, so I brought my coffee, making it a little bit of a cozy chat more than anything, because these Mondays I talk about the subjects. I ask some questions that you might want to ponder and consider, and please share your thoughts if you have anything you'd like to share or add to my talks. I mean, I'm only one person. There are so many perspectives. I mean, there are as many perspectives out there as there are people, obviously. And mine isn't necessarily your truth, but it might add something of value to you. And on Wednesdays, when I look a little closer at the topic, I also look a little closer at how we can break through anything obstructing us from that path or from that experience or sensation or whatever it is. And then Fridays, I invite you to join me for about 20-25 minutes. That's what it's turning out to be. 20-25 minutes guided meditation, where we center around that same topic, but we sort of expand beyond it as well. So that's this series that I'm doing here, simply because I enjoy sharing some of my experiences, my learnings, the tools that I've acquired and that I've helped other people to use, and simply because I want us all to be able to, or given the opportunity, to start creating the life that we really want to live, and to come closer to who we truly are, our own beauty, our own talents, strengths, essence. Because the more you do that, the better you'll feel. That's one thing. But and then of course, the more people start feeling better, the more they're going to be able to project this to other people and share it with other people and help other people. And this is where compassion is a powerful, what should I say, tool, if you like. It's not really a tool. What is compassion? That's a good question. What is compassion? To me, it's about caring for other people. It's about or animals or nature, or about seeing the other being, the other person, the other animal, and seeing beyond that which might obstruct some sort of a feeling of wanting to care for that person, so that you can look beyond their limitations and still feel compassion. Now, this is a very tricky and can be a very difficult thing to do. But I think you need to tap into what compassion is, and then also you need to be able to, I think, to find this compassion for yourself in order to be able to step behind a little bit and then see the other person or the other animal. And my question today, I was actually given a question when I think it was 16. I was in the US, and my language, although English initially was my first language, I hadn't spoken in English for many, many years, and so my vocabulary wasn't the greatest. And I was in this speech class, because all my friends were in there. And the teacher gave us a topic, one word, and then we had to stand up or a sentence, and then we had to stand up and speak about that. And I was given the sentence or the question, why do we need compassion? I did not know that word at that time, which is a very strange thing for me to consider now. But I didn't. And my friends were trying to explain the word to me, and then I had to stand up there and hold a 5-minute speech about why we need compassion. Well, for one thing, nobody taught me that word. Another thing, nobody had actually asked that question. Nobody talked about that in my life at that time. I didn't even think about compassion. Why do we need compassion? I think today there's a lot more awareness around these things, so that more people have maybe can consider and reflect around it. But at that time, at least in my life, it wasn't really something that I'd been considering. I remember thinking about a story that I'd heard of somebody who'd not had any human contact or any compassion, and how their illnesses, they attracted illnesses, and I retracted illnesses. Sorry, my English is stumbling a bit today. But I think also there was a story about somebody dying from lack of compassion, I think. So there's been research on this, and it does things to our body. This experience of compassion, being shown compassion, but also of sharing or being compassionate. But then the question comes again, I repeat it, what is compassion? And please, if you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, because I'd love to expand this topic. It's a big topic, it's a beautiful topic, and to me it's an important topic, because compassion is, to me, part of the path to a better world. No less. So it's an important topic to me. Rather than fighting for peace, opening up to compassion. So compassion to me is an opening feeling. It comes from my core. It comes from behind all these patterns, these thoughts, these belief systems, this scaffolding that we put up around ourselves to try to navigate and to try to be a human being somehow, and to protect ourselves. I think compassion comes from the heart. That's how I experience it. And it comes from what I tend to call the essence, which is, we're part of creation. We're part of this unconditional love that creation comes from. And I think that's where compassion comes from. Now, we don't always connect to it. Why don't we? Why does this disappear sometimes, this connection? Why do we sometimes lash out at people rather than act in compassion? I think it comes from pain, from detachment. And some people go beyond just lashing out. They go to hurting other people. They even go to hurting a whole nation, or to war. In these times, we have this experience in the West as well with the Russia-Ukraine war. Why do some people do that? And to me, it has to do with when the pain in you gets so big that you cannot deal with it, you lash out. I had an experience yesterday that I want to share, because it showed me how the darkness can somehow obstruct. It can distort everything, and it can detach you from your sense of love and compassion. And in my previous story, earlier in my life, I was in a lot of pain emotionally in myself and in darkness, and I would lash out a lot. Now, I've managed to release and move from that. So my foundation is very, very different today, which means that I can also, I can detect and notice and face any old story that comes up from a different perspective. And that happened yesterday. For some silly reason, a misunderstanding, a very old pattern came up, a reaction pattern that was not very kind, not very good. And I ended up also lashing out at myself, which was a very old pattern that was very firmly manifested in my whole system, in my whole body in a few years ago. But of course, now I have the perspective that this is an old pattern. So I had to work a little around it and look at it. And then I remembered that, or I had this topic of compassion at the back of my mind all the time because I was doing this today. And I thought, okay, how can compassion fit into this situation where I'm tapping into some old pain that's obviously not completely resolved, which is why it comes up. That's my experience as well. If you have patterns and you work through it and you release, and that's fine, and you think maybe it's done, and then something happens and you come back to it, it means there's still something in there that you haven't been able to release or move away from or heal. So that's one thing you can do. You can start, okay, what's that topic? What does it do? How can I heal? What can I do from that? But then, compassion. Where does compassion fit into a situation when you know that you're acting in a not very nice way and you're not even managing to feel compassion for another being because you're in this pain, and this was an old pain that didn't make sense really at the time. And I realized there's only one thing I can do, and it's to start to show compassion for myself in that situation. So the moment I started to acknowledge and remember this, because I know this, and we know this. People say you have to love yourself, you have to take care of yourself. But when shit hits the fan, how do you do it? How can you remind yourself or remember it? Well, to me, it's practice, of course, and also having a different perspective now than I did before. I had no way of managing this before. I was overwhelmed with all the confusion and the pain and the darkness. And now I have a different overview of everything that happens in my life, so it's easier for me to deal with it. And I had to look and I had to work. I had to remind myself what compassion feels like, where it comes from. And in order to, I was walking my dog and I was a bit annoyed with him, and that was part of my reaction pattern. I didn't, fortunately, we don't want to go to violence. Please heal things before you go there. But I was acknowledging that I was impatient with him, and he's in a bit of stiffness and pain, so I shouldn't really do that. And that was so I started lashing out at myself for doing this. And then I realized, well, if I'm going to see the dog and be compassionate towards him, this poor old dog who's been through a lot in his previous life before he came to me, then I'm going to have to be compassionate towards myself for lashing out, for being in my own pain. Even though it's an old pain, it's still an emotion that hit me now or yesterday. And so realizing this and being able to acknowledge that I can actually bring forward that emotion, that sensation, because I remember what it is. I remember what compassion feels like. And I know, I've learned, and I remember to start here. It starts with us. And the moment you can start embracing and showing compassion to yourself, the moment you can manage to see beyond whatever it is it was a person that annoyed me, that other person is doing that annoys you, see beyond that. Maybe it wasn't even an annoying thing that person did to me. It was just something I reacted to that had nothing. It was a misunderstanding. So then suddenly I can go back to being compassionate and feeling love and compassion for that person, and showing the dog and that person this compassion. But I had to acknowledge, I had to come back home to myself. Now, if people are not able to do this, if the pain is big enough, if it lasts long enough, you start detaching from people, you start detaching from yourself, you start detaching from other people, you start pushing everybody away, the pain increases, and it's a vicious circle. So if you're in a place where this happens, this can result in animosity between partners, parent-child, even domestic violence, to fighting in public, to war. And this is no small thing. If we get to a certain place where we feel that we don't want compassion even, because we start attacking ourselves rather than embracing ourselves, we start punishing ourselves, then please get some help if you can't manage on your own, because we need you. We need your love. We need your compassion. We need each other's compassion in order to feel better, in order to thrive, in order to be creative, in order to be constructive, to heal ourselves and each other, and to love each other, and to lift this world to a better place. And compassion is such a powerful part of this. Self-compassion and compassion to others. I embraced my dog. Once I started to recognize this, I embraced him, and I saw his struggling, and I saw his stiffness, and this old dog who really, I mean, he growls at some people because he's terrified, but he's a sweetheart, and I embraced that other person. We had to heal that situation. But first of all, I had to heal that part in me that was acting out. And now I'm sharing something that maybe people don't want to share about themselves, but we all do this. And I'm doing that in order to maybe make it a little less dangerous to share, a little less shameful. Because shame is another discompassionate emotion. If you feel ashamed, you reject yourself, you turn away from yourself. So what we want to do instead is embrace. If you had seen a child lash out in the way I did, it wasn't even very bad. It was more an internal thing, but previously I would have lashed out a lot worse from that emotion. But if you see a child doing that, you might scold that child. You might tell them not to do so. But wouldn't you try to embrace the child once you realize it comes from a frustration of not being understood or heard or feeling confused? Once you recognize that, you would embrace that child. And this is what I realized yesterday, and have realized before, but it was so important in lieu of doing this today. And instead of just talking about compassion is a beautiful thing, we should all go there, I really wanted to address this because we're humans and we do some silly things. And as long as we try to heal and move from that and not get stuck in it, and if we manage to notice how this enhances and forgive ourselves, and that's where the compassion comes in. When you embrace yourself, you also forgive yourself. When you're compassionate towards yourself, no matter what the situation, then you also forgive yourself so that you can heal, detach, see from a different perspective, and embrace others. Quarrels come from places like this. We all quarrel. And maybe you've done something that you're not very proud of. Be compassionate towards yourself in that situation so that you can do the same to other people. It doesn't mean that we have to accept things. It doesn't mean accepting. Part of embracing that person is part of acknowledging this is not a very good thing. I see the place it comes from. You don't need to do that again. I hold you in that space. I hold you in your pain so that you can heal. This is saying to yourself, but also to other people. And so that you can act and do things differently. And once we start embracing that we can do and think and act differently, we start shifting, we start changing our lives, we start shifting the world. And the more of us who dare to look at and acknowledge, okay, I'm not being a very good person right now. It's because I'm feeling some sort of a pain. You don't even need to understand what it is. You need to understand that you have some experience that has been painful, and then to embrace yourself for that pain. That is my thoughts on this, my experience, my sharing. And on Wednesday, I'll do a little bit more about around this, sort of practicing shifting that and enhancing the compassion for yourself and for others, and embracing it in your life, and it comes from a place of love, from the heart. That's my perspective. So again, please, if you have different perspectives, different thoughts, or additional or experiences, please share it. I'd love to hear. We'd all love to hear. I mean, your opinions are important to enhance our awareness and acknowledge that we're different and that we have different experiences. This is just one experience. That was my sharing today. A lot more personal than I had planned and a lot more revealing than I had thought I'd dare to do. I hope you don't mind. I don't mind. So, yes, and let's do a little centering at the end here. And instead of doing the 3 breaths, you can do one deep breath if you like, just to bring yourself to the center. And then breathe out whatever you need to let go of before you start the day. And then just notice where you are with your eyes open. Notice the space you're in. Notice your own body in this space, your surroundings. Maybe there are people around you, maybe not. I'd like you to acknowledge that you are here in that space. Acknowledge what it feels like to be in that space today, what you feel like today, what it feels like to be you today. Just notice, acknowledge. You don't need to do anything, just acknowledge for now. Then I'd like you to, if you can, close your eyes. You can do it with your eyes open. If you're driving, certainly not close your eyes. And then tap into, bring your focus, your awareness to the center of your chest, your heart center. And see if you can investigate and find that compassionate feeling. It's closely affiliated with love, of course. See if you can feel that compassion. See if you can feel it seeping out from your heart. Maybe you want to think about somebody you care about in this moment and send that emotion out to that person. Imagine that you can actually send compassion through time and space to that person or an animal. And once you've done that, I'd like you to come back and send that sense of compassion out to yourself. All through yourself, through your whole body, especially to your mind and all the things going on in your mind. Send a thought of compassion to this mind that's doing its best to find the way for you and to support you in the only way it knows how. And then bring the compassion back into your own heart for all your emotions. All the things that you're going through, all the things, every emotion that you ever have or have had or will have. Some compassion to this person that you are, who can feel all these things, good and bad. And imagine bringing some compassion to any situation that you've been in where you haven't maybe acted in a way that you're very proud of. Share that with yourself, that compassion. Embrace it. Be kind to yourself, to that person who did that or acted or thought in that way. That's it. Beautiful. And that was what I had to share today. Now this little exercise, you can do it any time. Explore it. So you get to know and recognize this shift, this emotion that you can bring in and enhance and bring forward and send in any direction that you want. Let's be compassionate and kind to each other. Somebody said, I just want to finish with that. Somebody once said, be kind to yourself. Imagine if every person on the earth was kind to themselves. We wouldn't need to think about being kind to others. We'd be kind. So, and with that, I bid you a beautiful, kind, compassionate day. Take care. Bye-bye.